Oh, boy, you are something else. I am so glad to see you. I actually am really glad to see you. Not see you again, to clarify, talk at you. My name is Paul Bartholomew. This is I Want to Hold Your Band, and welcome. I really am glad you're here. And today's guest, he is such a delightful man and an incredible talent and such a warm, thoughtful soul. And his name is Nikkolas Smith, and he's an artivist. He looks at what's happening in the world and he channels it into his art. I highly recommend you take a stroll through some of his work, The History of We and A Change Is Gonna Come and The Artivist, as well as all these incredible portraits that he does, but also his concept art for movies. He did it for Sinners and Black Panther, and on top of it all, he designed theme park rides for Disney. Yeah, so I loved having him on. I got a chance to meet his family, his wife, and his adorable child, who could not be any more adorable. It is literally impossible. We talk Stevie Wonder, Earth, Wind, and Fire, Moses Sumney, Nils Frahm, Bonobo, Kendrick, Lamar, Sam Cooke, SWV, and the list goes on and on and on. So remember, as always, the links to all the songs we talk about are in the episode description, so you can click them and vibe along with us. So without further ado, I give you Nikkolas Smith. Okay, so the first question I always start with is the first piece of music that you remember coming into your life when you were younger.
So I grew up in a very religious household in Texas, and there was, religion and football, and that's Texas. And so I grew up in Houston, and everything was like gospel music. And so I just remember I was like born in the church. Not literally, but yeah, it was probably like, some choir hymn or some really fun, upbeat gospel vibe, something like that. And so grew up listening to a lot of BB and CC Winans and Fred Hammond and Kirk Franklin and all that good stuff.
Your parents, are they both pretty religious?
Yeah, my parents are both licensed ministers. And yeah, so it was like, that kind of thing where it's like church 2 or 3 times a week for your entire upbringing.
Wow.
And singing in the choir and doing all the, all of that.
Any siblings?
Yeah, like all older, 2 brothers, 3 sisters growing up. And
so you're the baby.
Yeah. I just remember like falling in line and do this, do that, take this, go there, clean this. And
it was a well-oiled machine by the time you came along.
Yeah. And also it was the 80s, and so I don't remember, it wasn't like I had music all the time, and music wasn't pumped into me all the time, with the iPod and then the smartphone and all that. So I remember having like a Walkman with a cassette at some point in middle school and maybe like 1 or 2 tapes, but I didn't have a whole lot of music growing up.
Yeah.
Just like at home. So
that's so interesting you say that. I've talked about that here and there. Music was kind of, you had to be much more deliberate with listening to it.
Yeah.
Now it's just kind of everywhere,
right,
all around, whether it's on your phone or someone scrolling through social media and you hear. I mean, it really is much easier, even if you don't want to hear it. That's true.
Mm-hmm. I guess it was quieter. I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, I kind of just had whatever music that I would generally hear, like probably church music or whatever, just in my head, but I didn't listen to a lot of music, I feel like, growing up. Yeah.
Did any of your siblings have kind of like one, you said there, 3 boys and 2 girls?
So yeah, it was like kind of like Brady Bunch, 3 boys, 3 girls kind of thing.
Were they all kind of the same as you, or did you get a sense you'd hear from their room songs, and you're like,
oh yeah, my second oldest brother was a rapper. So
oh really?
Long story, but yeah, definitely like my older siblings, they were way older, and so some of them are way older, and so I would be able to see BET was on TV, maybe it wasn't supposed to be on TV, but it was on TV. And we could, listen to 106 in Park and hear the latest R&B and hip hop and stuff. Yeah, there was a little bit of different influences that I was kind of slowly being exposed to. Yeah. So, yeah, that was my kind of little intro into just other genres and other types of music. And then I just started to branch out more and more. And I wanted to stay in Texas and just go to college in Texas and come back home. And, I ended up going to Hampton University in Virginia. The other thing, when I was growing up, it was like I played the saxophone. I was in like symphonic winds. I would play a lot of like classical stuff. And I don't know, we play like Aaron Copland and we play like John Williams, stuff like that kind of thing. So that was the musical part of just learning how to play saxophone and playing in a symphonic orchestra. And then I went to college in Virginia to an HBCU called Hampton University. And then I went from like the kind of very traditional structured high school marching band to a black marching band where we played Michael Jackson and Stevie Wonder and all this kind of stuff. Totally different, and that kind of like opened me up to like all this other world of music that I really didn't know a whole lot about, but I was kind of like picking it up.
That was my question: is when? And
it college,
there, college, and your eyes were open because I'm sure you're around tons of other people that are musicians, and so you were probably just flooded with.
Yeah, and that's the beautiful thing about being at Hampton, because there's like kids from New York coming down and from the South going, over to Virginia and West Coast. There was like this huge melting pot of cultures at Hampton. And so lots of different, I heard like, go-go music from DC for the first time. Like, a little bit more West Coast stuff and all kinds of things, But definitely that was like, just learning to play lots of different hip hop and black R&B stuff that just, it was beautiful.
That's interesting that the exposure to it, that you came into it playing it. I don't think I've heard anybody say that where like they had kind of a musical, I mean, I want to be hyperbolic and say a musical awakening, but a kind of an entry point into music when you started playing it. It's like
it was different. I'm as I'm saying it, I'm like, that was my introduction to a lot of really popular, timeless black music, was playing it, like literally sing it, sheet music. In the typical HBCU bands, like we don't have sheet music on the field, like you just have to memorize it all. And then so we're just like memorizing dozens of songs, and because you have to dance when you play, right. So you can't have like music and you just have to know it. And so we had to like we were literally like memorizing all kinds of just amazing music. Time of my life. That was great. And it just opened my eyes to everything. That's why I feel like, I don't know if you saw like the list of, first of all, thank you for having me like write all of my top 10s and top 5s and things. Like I've never done that before. And I think it was very helpful to just look at it and see, okay, this is like the kind of like, I feel like it's a pretty diverse range of music there, because it was never one thing. And also I'm just the type of person that I am. I've never been the type of person to just be a fanatic about one thing and dive into anything. And definitely music is the same way, where it's just like, I can't say that I'm like a super fan of any one genre or one artist. It's just like, I like there's a wide net of like a lot of things.
Your list definitely reflected that.
Okay.
in a great way. I mean, like,
cool. Because it's just so many, I don't know, like I still like, there's so much classical stuff. There's still so much like cinematic stuff.
Was there any during that time music coming to you from all these different people from all over the country? Are there any things that stood out to you that you remember hearing that you're like, oh?
I think the biggest kind of eye-opener for me was Earth, Wind, and Fire. Having to memorize Earth, Wind, and Fire. And this is my first time really sing Earth, Wind, and Fire. Memorize the music. And then also hearing it. But also like I'm surrounded by a whole band and we're playing it. We're playing September. And I'd never heard of September before until we played it. And it's like, wow, this is cool. I want to go back and actually like listen to the real thing.
I want to actually, it was like the third thing I was going to talk to you about, but I want to start. 2 of your sad songs are by the composer Max Richter. Well, one's movie score from Hamnet.
Yeah.
And then the other, The Blue Notebooks, and I don't know if it's used in also one. Then Doomed, Moses Sumney. I'd never heard that before.
Whew. Did you hear it?
Oh my gosh, I'm getting chills. The chills won't stop. It was so beautiful. Then the other 2 songs you had listed, the Nils Frahm song, and then I know Sufjan Stevens' 4th of July. I just have one album, Carrie and Lowell, this album.
Yeah, devastating.
Yeah. So all your songs have a kind of otherworldly feel to them. And I wonder if you could explain why those are sadness songs for you.
Yeah.
They're all different. I mean, but, you know.
I don't know. I think it may be part of the whole, like, I mean, I do a lot of like sci-fi and cinematic artwork. Like, I'm a concept artist for films and stuff. And so I feel like when I'm hearing just a beautiful song that I can kind of see colors and brushstrokes, you know, I'm a painter. And so if I can listen to that and I see a certain type of like brushstroke or color, then I'm like, I don't know how to describe it, but I'm like, yeah, that takes me to a place. Even though it like might crush me, like I want to listen to it over and over. And one of those is No Step on Wing by Nils Frahm. And it's like not really, I wouldn't even necessarily consider it like sadness, but it's like just so ethereal and beautiful. It was actually the birth song of my kid Zion, and so that song was on loop for like 6 hours while my wife was, you know, in labor and giving birth. There's a couple of artists, Nils Frahm and Bonobo, that's like she introduced me to that like we just love, and it's like two of those artists that will just like they just reach a certain part of your soul that you can't. It's just like the Doomed song. Like I feel like if there was some global competition of like what is the most beautiful and sad song ever, I would put those songs up like it's this. You can't tell me anything different. Like listen to this song, and if you don't all feel something, something's wrong. Like and so I just feel like I've always felt like in a way I kind of see it as like a gift that I have to be able to recognize emotion in that way and also like paint it. When I'm doing my artivism and when I'm making portraits, a lot of times it's portraits of people who have been unjustly murdered, you know, and I have to get people to feel an emotion just with a portrait. And so I feel like music, you know, the visual art and the music go hand in hand in that way.
Yeah.
And it's undescribable. I just like, that's it. I feel like I can hear a song, I can paint a painting and say, all right, once I can get to a point where like, all right, I'm done with this. And that will make somebody feel the emotion that I'm going for. And I feel like I can hear that in songs.
When you say you see brushstrokes, do you like
Yeah.
you like hear something and you see certain brushstrokes from the music you're hearing when you hear it? Or yeah, how does that kind of manifest musically into visually, you know?
Yeah, I think it probably comes from just, you know, playing the saxophone, you know, in middle school, high school, college kind of thing. Visually seeing the notes as they as I hear them, because a lot of the, like I was saying, a lot of the music had to be memorized, and so I'm like seeing a movement, and I'm guessing maybe that's I'm looking at the sheet music in a way, and I'm seeing not necessarily the notes, but I'm just seeing like a wave of like,
Yes.
you know, like No Step on Wing it has this da-da-da, it's like you're going up and down, and it's like a river, you know.
It's a perfect transition because you were saying it was the first person I was going to ask you about that I had never heard of. Maybe cue that you've never heard of Bonobo. I had never heard of Bonobo.
Oh boy.
And I listened to some of it, and I was so pulled in. One of your favorite songs is Outlier from the same album that was one of your favorite albums, which is Migration. So tell me how you said your wife.
Yes, Vanessa introduced me to Bonobo, and I will say, if she hears you say that you've never,
I will not tell her.
oh my goodness,
I will not
no,
tell
but
her.
she's like the number one fan in the world.
Really?
Bonobo. He's I guess I could just say down tempo, you know, his music, but he will take sounds, audio clips from, I feel like just his life, just going through life. He'll take pieces of vocal recordings and just little, I don't know, sounds from everywhere and just beautifully weave them together. And then he'll pick up a guitar and a bass and play the piano and put all the music together. And it's just phenomenal. And I picked Outlier. That's my favorite song of his because it's got this, I don't know how to describe it. It's like a lot of the stuff people will describe as like, you know, electronic, kind of like a poppy kind of sound, which it has that, but then it goes into, there's a lot of songs that he has where it'll go from like this beautiful, cool groove and then just strings only, and the orchestra just puts you into tears. And then he has the electronic part. In this case, it was like a dum 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 or something like that, where it's like you had to put on the stank face. It's just like this is just sick. Every time we're at the concert, I lean over to Vanessa. I'm like, this is sick. And then he just goes back to the strings, and it's just like beautiful. And Outlier has all of that. Like every piece of who he is as an artist is all in that one song, and he just wraps it up so beautifully.
Okay, so let's move on to Kendrick Lamar. You have several things. So you have him as one of your favorite artists, All Right, which I know that, Pump Up Song, which I didn't know, Squabble Up, and To Pimp a Butterfly, which I didn't know. But what's Kendrick Lamar to you? Like,
Yeah, Kendrick, definitely my number one hip hop artist of all time. The guy is just a storyteller, and like I think he's the greatest storyteller in hip hop ever. And I don't know, I call myself an artivist, combining art and activism. And I see him as an artivist as well in his field. And he has this ability to morph into all these different characters, which I love. Like, it's interesting to hear him. Like, he will literally change his voice and start rapping as a woman from the 1950s, and then he'll be one of his friends on the street, growing up in Compton, and they're getting ready to do some grimy stuff. He's been through a lot, growing up in Compton. He's seen a lot. He's dodged a lot of bullets, and literally, figuratively. And he embodies all of these characters while he's rapping, and he's technically one of the best rappers that you've ever heard. And the way that he can put that all in a story, it's just like, To Pimp a Butterfly. Like, the metaphor, like, I love when there's a beautiful metaphor that encapsulates the whole project. And he's talking about, the struggles of making it out of Compton, and the metaphor of America, and how it goes back to, 400 years ago, and enslavement, and how talent is pimped, and it is commercialized, it is packaged, and it is, used by America in a lot of ways, not just in the music industry, but obviously, like, originally, how Black people gave everything to build this country and to make it profitable, and the life lessons that he puts in there.
yeah.
And then he closes it all out by having a conversation with Tupac, which is like, come on, like, the genius of using that audio in such it was just like, you win. Like, this is the album.
Yeah.
And it came out of such a pivotal time. Black Lives Matter movement, All Right, being that anthem, that alone, All Right, at a time when we needed it, like, just to kind of give the Black community, I don't know, a little bit of a boost to say that they can try a million ways, but like, they can't break us. They can't break us all,
Yeah.
And it's something that you can't really, I mean, if you look through the entirety of hip hop, what that song did, for the community, it was just like one of the top 5 moments,
A Change Is Gonna Come. Did that come to you before you wrote your wonderful book?
Yeah, so A Change Is Gonna Come. Such an honor. I was contacted to illustrate his words, what I feel like is one of the greatest civil rights era songs of all time. And, it was basically like, hey, the book is the lyrics is the book, and illustrate it. So I guess that was maybe one of the reasons why I'm really drawn to cinematic music, is because at home, the music that I heard while I was watching films was just some of the only, like, non-gospel music that there was, right?
Kind of
so
a
I'm
backdoor to hear music.
Yeah, so I'm like 10 years old watching Malcolm X. I watched everything. I mean, like,
How did that happen in your household?
There were, for some reason, no film within reason was off limits.
Really? Oh, so your parents knew?
Yeah,
okay.
with especially if it's like civil rights era stuff.
Right.
Like, you're gonna watch everything. You're gonna watch what they did to Malcolm X. You're gonna watch what they did to Martin Luther King Jr. With my sister, I was watching like Nightmare on Elm Street and all the craziest things. But 10 years old watching Malcolm X, that's when I hear Change Is Gonna Come for the first time, as Malcolm X is like on the Spike Lee dolly. And man, that song has been with me, my whole life. And in the Black community, you hear it annually. And so when I got the email for this book, I was like, I have to do this justice. And I basically, I wanted to have the story of this boy who was, born by the river, born by the river. And though he sees a camera in the water, and he uses the gift of photography to highlight the highs and lows of the civil rights era. So that was the main idea. It kind of leads up to the Civil Rights Act being signed with MLK, but you can literally turn on the song and just flip page by page. And I love that. It's the only book that I have of all my picture books where, it's a song. You listen and you flip. I have also a book called I'm Ruby Bridges, with Ruby Bridges. And I was just at her festival in Memphis, and I was on stage kind of like, quote unquote, reading A Change Is Gonna Come. But there was a DJ there, so I was like, why don't you just like play the song? And then I just like had him play the song and just like hold up the book and flip the pages. And it's something really powerful to be able to do it that way.
Yeah.
Because one of those songs that it transports you back to, even if you weren't alive in the 60s, whatever reference you have to the civil rights era, it takes you back to that. And and this is a picture book, but I have a lot of picture books that are on banned book lists, and they talk about...
Your books are on banned book lists?
Yeah, because they talk about American history. The 1619 Project.
Is that true?
Yeah, lots of them. The Artivist is on a banned book list.
Are you shitting me?
Nope. The Artivist talks about protect trans kids, and it talks about, children are worth more than guns. And so for that reason, it's not allowed in some schools in Florida and Texas and wherever. Yeah, that was an interesting task, being able to try to figure out how to visually add a story onto kind of like one of those timeless songs.
Did you listen to the song? Did you go more off of the words or the song, or probably all the above, I guess, in a way, when you did it? How many times did you listen to that song? You're like,
song on repeat for hours as I was just sketching, and I kind of speed paint all the time. So I'm
speed paint?
Like I do a lot of digital. This was a digitally painted book. And so, yeah, when I'm doing film stuff, I'm speed painting. All of my work really is so I'm like, if the book is written by someone else, I'll read the manuscript, kind of internalize, speed paint, early sketches, concept sketches. And I do the same for this, but for this, I'm just like listening to the music and like letting it wash over me for hours and, speed painting. And that's a lot of the end result of the artwork. There's a lot of like movement, and like, again, the movement and the motion that I see in my head when I'm listening to the music comes out so it's all like one stream. It's weird.
Wow,
yeah. So when you're seeing the book, you're seeing what the motion on, the imagery in my head as I was listening to the music.
How about the favorite love song of yours, Rain, from 1997, which is when you were in kind of like high school, maybe?
So that's probably middle school. Probably when it came out, I was not allowed to listen to it. But SWV is one of those groups that in the Black community, they're always on some radio. They're always, especially in the 90s, 2000s, like you hear it and, riding in the car with my big sister, like, I'm going to hear some SWV. I'm going to,
Right.
So at some point, I'm sure I heard it. Yeah, that's one of those, there's so many R&B groups that it's just like, they're everywhere. That one, particularly, my wife was just playing a jazz kind of like remake of that song.
Oh, really?
And she didn't know about the original. I was like, hey, that's Rain. Like, that's SWV. She's like, who is that? And so I had to go immediately. Like, I went back to because as one of those groups that's like, I don't listen to all the time, but like, when you hear it, you're like, oh, that's early 2000. And it's always, especially with those, I always think about, man, those were simpler times. I was just riding my bike, Parents had no idea where you are. You just like come back before the street lights come on, and we would just ride our bikes for days with the Walkman and the headphones.
Oh, let's talk Songs in the Key of Life, which I have that. It's incredible. Tell me about As from 1976 and when that came into your life.
That's one of those just eternal songs that... It just will always be, again, another one of those songs that's just like, it's just playing at every black function, black household. Like one of those songs that like transcends, you know how like when I was growing up, it's like it's either gospel or it's secular, and it's just like Stevie Wonder just transcends. Michael Jackson, like you can listen to the greatest of the greats, you know.
Yeah.
So that song, I can't even tell you when. It's just like it's always been there, you know.
Did your parents have a record player or a, you know, in the, like the living room or a...
Yeah, and it was like always Kenny G and Peebo Bryson. Like it was always just the old classic stuff like that. And one thing I found out later on was that my dad used to be a DJ back in the day. He didn't tell me about that when I was growing up. So at some point, I think we found like a giant box of records, giant case of records.
This
and
is a
just
dream
like
for me.
all of his old stuff. All the music that he never let me listen to.
I'm going to give you a few songs in your obscure section.
Okay.
And you tell me, you know, maybe what it is or why, you know, if there's a story or something with something and why it's meaningful to you, give a chance to have nothing, you know. One is Hide and Seek, Imogen Heap. Love that song.
Yeah, see, that's the thing. Like, I feel bad not putting Imogen Heap on the list also of, like, my favorites. Because, like, I listened to her for so long. But then somehow I just, like, forgot about her. And the way that song, especially the end of it, eventually was like remixed and turned into other stuff, and you know, people know that song from other songs and stuff like that. But even before you get to that part of the song, the chords at the beginning and throughout, it's really powerful stuff, like the lyrics.
I so appreciate your time and coming, and hopefully that wasn't too painful.
That was great. Also, shout out McGee. How does he do what he does? How many miles? I don't even know half of the lyrics. I don't even know 10% of the lyrics, because he kind of like sings and says words, but he's not the type of artist to where he even wants you to understand all the words. But the music is so incredible that like I'm just like singing whatever I think he's singing,
Right.
And it's just like yes, and I listened to it 100 times. And so one of my friends posted his stuff because he was on Saturday Night Live like a couple years ago, maybe last year, for his latest project. So I was like blown away by that. And then I start going back in time, which is always fun to like say, oh, like what did he make 5 years ago and 8 years ago, and blown away by all of that stuff. And I think everybody should listen to McGee.
When you first hear a song, generally, do you hear the music or do you hear the words?
Music, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that for me is the more, I don't want to say more important after all that I just said about artivism and stuff, but the music has to hook me first.
Well, thank you so much for talking with me and coming. I am honored that you came here.
Thank you. This was great.